Hey folks, welcome back to Retirement Roadmap with MasterPlan Retirement Consultants. My name is Evan, and with me as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. Last week we discussed the potential tax impact on your heirs from inheriting certain assets. This week we want to continue down that path and discuss the impact of your successful planning on your heirs and loved ones. Leaving a legacy can mean different things. Of course, a large death benefit is a wonderful gift. Inheriting a brokerage or IRA, Roth account can be a great thing. From family heirlooms to family land, inheritance can be a meaningful and pragmatically helpful gift to your loved ones. We want to introduce another gift idea for your heirs, and that is the gift of preparation. I understand that may sound a little hokey to some, but for those who have lived through the passing of a loved one, you understand the stresses and anxieties on top of the already present pain of loss, especially for a time that is inherently difficult. Legacy planning is an opportunity to make sure your heirs are focused on what's important during life's difficult moments and not concerned with probate costs or whether a death benefit will pay in time or whether you will ever talk to a sibling again after an emotional blow-up. Mark, we see often that it takes proximity to a bad estate planning situation before most people consider planning for their own. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's one of those triggering points in life. You know, it's kind of like when do they start looking for help from a retirement planner? Well, when they start thinking about, hey, I'm really close to retirement. Or maybe they lost a job, so they need help planning, budgets and what do they do with their 401k. So many times, I liken it to a doctor. I mean, a lot of people don't go to a doctor until they have a severe pain in their side or whatever, and so that triggers a visit, right? Especially when I'm younger, that was definitely the case. So I think it does take that trigger because we're busy. We get busy in life. We got, if it's not kids, it's college. Kids. If it's not college kids, you got kids getting married. There's always something that seems to be in the way. And I do see a lot of people come in with wills that were written 30 years ago when their kids were like 5 and 8. So that's kind of a triggering event, so to speak. And then they've never been updated since then. And so much has changed in laws, tax laws, even probate laws, things of that nature. It's really almost like not having a document.
I see. Personally, it feels like neglecting legacy planning feels kind of like crossing a highway blindfolded. So you're banking on hope so. Yeah, sure, you might make it to the end of the highway, but there are a lot of fast cars that are passing you by and a lot of potential for disaster. Yeah,
the stories our attorneys tell us of things, the documents were either incorrect or non-existent or had not been updated. I mean, there's so many moving pieces. And then you've got to remember also part of estate planning is beneficiaries. Right?
Yeah.
And so if you have an IRA or 401k or a life insurance policy, that beneficiary designation takes precedence over whatever you might see in your will. Mm-hmm. So you may have one thing in one area and one thing in the other, and suddenly you have a contradiction, but what you may have wanted to happen is not going to happen. So it has to be matched up. There's so many moving pieces that go to that.
I think we see a combination of that. We see people don't realize what all can go wrong. They maybe are only seeing one side of the spectrum, so maybe they take care of one thing without realizing the impact it has on other things, or just plain getting bad advice and doing something incorrectly.
Right, and laws change too. I mean, a lot of folks don't know that in 2018 here in Georgia, the healthcare directive changed. The laws around it and the laws around the financial durable power of attorney. So now the old ones are practically no good. You could go to court and get them to work, but they've gone stale and the law has changed. So a lot of folks don't even know that. And so they're sitting here with old documents and all of a sudden somebody gets ill or can't make decisions and they end up having to go to court. Can you imagine going to court and you have a loved one in the hospital that needs a decision made? And so it's something you have to stay on top of, but the average person walking around, that's not top of mind all the time. And that's why it's important to work with someone that reminds you, hey, we need to review this again. It's been 3 years. We need to double check. We need to see what's changed, things of that matter to make sure it stays up, especially since as you know, most of the folks we work with are 55 and older. And so there is a more likely chance, and so that means some of them are 65 and 75. So the chances become greater of needing some of these documents.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. It's not top of mind until it is immediate, and all of a sudden, oh man, I got to take mom or dad to the hospital. Don't they have a healthcare directive? Am I the one on that? I can't remember if it's me or my sister. Do we even have a copy of that? It's all hits at once, and then you realize that you're behind the eight ball.
I've actually gone with a couple of our attorneys at least 2 or 3 times to what we call a deathbed document signing. I know it's horrible, but it's like they have days to live and they have no documents, and so we're trying to get a will put together and an updated power of attorney or whatever, and it's horrible. So it's just a horrible thing to have to do, and with everything else going on. But don't wait till then. I mean, get it handled, and otherwise you're leaving your loved ones with a tremendous burden.
Yeah, I think you have a story to share of a similar. Well, maybe not similar to that, but of the things that can go wrong. A lot of do-it-yourselfers tend to either take bad advice or not, again, get the full spectrum.
And maybe even go into the wrong attorney. Okay,
yeah,
so
sure.
I've got, this is a true story. This happened back in the 90s here locally. I was with another firm at that point. And I'll try to keep this short, but everything that could go wrong went wrong. Okay, so we'll call this couple Bob and Mary. They were in their late 50s, and the wife was diagnosed with a very rare illness that basically she was given 3 to 4 months to live. So of course they set about getting their documents together. So they went to an attorney, and they basically the background is they had about a $1.5 million estate. Most of the investment assets were in the IRA. Okay, a lot of it his. There was $300,000 in her name, and it was mostly cash and real estate. She had inherited real estate with her 2 sisters, so that was a little bit of a complication. And she owned a rental house. Okay, and I know it's hard to get all this straight, but I think what's important is what's fixing to happen here. Okay, so she basically wanted the residence to go to her husband. Place for him to live, right? Late 50s, right? Her rental house, she kind of wanted to go to the children because kind of be an investment for them, right? Her share of the inherited land owned with her 2 sisters, she wanted to go to her children, kind of keep it in the family, right? Her IRA, which was kind of small, of $150,000, she wanted to go to their children, and everything else would go to her husband directly through the will. Okay, so that's kind of the scenario. So they got the legal documents signed, laying all this out, but then they started having doubts. They began wondering, is this really going to happen? Is this document going to work? Things like that. So they went back to the attorney, and they asked and requested that the attorney do a quitclaim deed. Basically what they wanted to do is they wanted to get the quitclaim deed to make sure that the rental house went to the children. Okay, good. That's taken care of. Not a good choice that you'll see in just a few minutes. The wife did pass away about 6 weeks later. So the husband came to see us. He was referred to us because nothing seemed to be working correctly. So what did we see? Well, basically everything she wanted to happen did not happen. Okay, I don't think anything happened. The problem, well, first of all, no guidance, no planning. It was just creating documents, and they did not go to an estate planning attorney. Okay, the attorney did not ask to see beneficiary designations, didn't ask to see anything else, didn't even ask to see titling of property. And so what did happen? Well, the land she owned with her sisters did not go to her children, that third part, because it was owned jointly with the other 2 sisters. Automatically it went to the other 2 sisters. So that didn't happen. The rental house did go to the children, but they had a huge tax bill because it was not inherited. It was given to them before she passed away. So they lost out on what's called a step-up in basis. We've talked about that before, but they basically, if they sold the house, they would have to pay taxes on what it was worth back when the mom first bought it. Big mistake, right? And finally, her retirement account went to the husband because he was listed as the beneficiary instead of going to the children. Okay, so again, the will may have said one thing, but the beneficiary was the husband. She wanted to go to the children. They lost out on that as well. Okay, it gets worse. Okay, 18 months later, what happened? What happens to a lot of men that lose their wives? He got remarried. Okay, and that's not, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it can kind of make things worse. Okay, so now he's married to another woman who, incidentally, the wife that passed away did not really care for her anyway. Just a sidebar there. But because now he's married and intermingling, his house, his savings accounts, and hey, I want to make sure I'm taking care of if I die. It ended up almost disinheriting the children as well, because he died. If he had died next, which I don't know, that's been years ago, but if he had died before the new wife, then she would have gotten most of everything and his children would have gotten nothing. So trying to do it yourself or do it without planning around it can have huge consequences.
I do want to take a moment, folks, to point you out to our website, masterplanretire.com. There you can find links to multiple retirement resources, other episodes that run a bunch of different topics for retirement planning as the holistic retirement plan. You can also schedule your complimentary consultation from our website, take you directly to our calendar, find a time that works best for you. That's an opportunity to discuss your own retirement, your hopes, your dreams, your goals. We can run a series of reports as well. That's masterplanretire.com, or call us at the office 770-980-9262. Yeah, that seemed like it was kind of every natural disaster falling in at once.
Sounds like a bad movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds
like
a little bit like a script.
Yeah.
I think that on top of everything else, when you see things go incorrectly, and then also you add in another marriage, and then you add in relational problems. That's actually one of the points that I wanted to get to today. Avoiding relational grievances for your heirs. I mean, how often do we see the passing of a parent or a family member or something, and how ugly that can turn? Sometimes it's hard to picture family members arguing over money at the time of someone's passing, but it happens time and time again, even from folks who you wouldn't dream of creating a stir. Money tends to bring out what I like to call the lizard brain in people, the lizard brain, basically, where it's just blanked out and survival, eat or be eaten sort of brain mindset. But not only can this lead to an unfulfilled legacy wishes from those who have passed, but creates lifelong relational damage. It does that regularly. So save your family from distress. May your passing bring your family closer together and not push them further away.
Well, I think I've quoted this before, but Mark Twain said, "You never really know someone until you share an inheritance with them."
Oh yeah,
and so money does things to people, and some people can handle it, some cannot. And we've actually seen, pickup trucks, or heard about pickup trucks backing up to grandma's house during the funeral. Some cousin or nephew or whatever is trying to grab what he thinks is his, and that type of thing. And I know that's severe, and that's probably pretty unusual, but not as unusual as you would think. But more importantly, you see things like contesting a will.
Yeah.
Hey, she told me months ago that I was going to get this, and the will doesn't say that, and so a will can be contested, and so it could drag it out for a long time. And we've seen very wealthy people that had nothing but a will being contested for years and years, being wrapped up in court. So now you've got a judge determining where grandma's stuff going or mom and dad's stuff is going, as opposed to what their true wishes were. And so it just overcomplicates it. There's so many stories like that. But even if you've got a small estate, again, and that's why we're not big will fans. We believe in many cases that a living trust, is a much better vehicle because it gives more control. It can help control taxes better, and it's not contestable.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a private document. You don't have to advertise it. Hey, so and so has passed away. Mark's gone. Come get his stuff. Whoever may think he owed you something, but better come now, type of thing. And so a trust is something, as you know, we many times will recommend if they have any kind of size of an estate.
Yeah, and just as an aside, it's not that we're not will fans, because most of our clients have a will too. If they have a trust, they'll have what's called a pour-over
backup will or pour-over will.
Yeah,
yes.
But on its own, yeah, it can in many cases be insufficient.
Yep, absolutely. And again, it has to be verified by the court. So the judge gets a hold of it. If there's a missignature, if one of the signatures looks a little bit different than the others, some states require every page be initialed. I've seen people go in and scratch out something in their will and then initial it, there's a good chance that judge is going to kick that out.
Right.
And I've had people write them on the back of a napkin, and technically it's legal, but it's probably not going to make it through court.
It's surprising the kind of things, how we see certain things signed from time to time, but we don't have to get in that today.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah, well, now that we're kind of talking about documentation, that's all happening at once, and then to find when in the moment when you have to go to court that things might be inadequate. But that goes doubly for when there is a healthcare emergency. And we talked a little bit about the healthcare directive and things like that, but it is critical to not only have them, but make sure you know where they are, have a copy.
Have your agents have a copy, the people that you've listed on there to help make decisions. Maybe put one in, like here we have what we call a master vault, which is really just a storage unit in the sky, kind of a drop box.
Yeah.
Maybe keep a copy in that, as well as some other documents. So I think that's important because people travel. What if you're on a 6-week journey across the U.S. in an RV and you end up in a hospital in Las Vegas with major issues and you don't have a document? We actually had a client. They drove to Alaska to visit their children, and while they were in Alaska, she got, is it sepsis? Is what you call it? Sepsis, yeah. Almost died. And so thankfully she was able to communicate enough that they did not have to have a healthcare directive or go to court, but it could have turned worse, and they didn't have a copy with them. Of course, you don't think about that.
And in the same vein, financial power of attorney is incredibly important. We've talked a lot about estate planning mistakes that people have made as far as go ahead and putting your child on a deed to a house or property or account or something, making them part owner and losing that step up in basis. But there is a need to make sure that if there's a situation where you're unable to access your funds or not physically or mentally capable at the time, that liquidity is needed.
Somebody can get to your money.
You've got to pay the bills. You've got to pay those medical bills. There's this death benefit doesn't pay immediately. There's a process to file that. You have to wait before you have your death certificate.
I've seen it take 4 to 6 months to get a death certificate because of the man that passed away was in his early 50s, ended up having a massive heart attack, but because he did not have any symptoms, had not been diagnosed with anything, the county ordered an autopsy. And so therefore, and ever since COVID, things have been backed up. It took 4 or 5 months to get it. So there was no death benefit could be claimed. This poor woman could not get into his IRA, could not do anything else because a power of attorney is, you can get into somebody's IRA if they're alive. Yeah. He's passed away, so that money's in limbo, okay? So that's why we tell people, have some cash somewhere that people can get to in a case like this, because she had trouble even paying for the funeral because again she couldn't get to any of his money, and her money was, her being younger, was kind of locked up into some IRAs, and she ended up having to borrow from her 401k and some other things, so she made it through. But what a horrible situation to be in.
Well, people don't think about the needed liquidity at time of death for their loved ones who would be helping to settle their estate. And you mentioned that, if you're pulling from retirement accounts because that's where your most immediate need is, not only are you being hit, you're being hit with double taxes, possibly depending on how much you take out.
But be careful when I say about having liquidity available to other people if something happens to you, especially if you pass away. Don't just put a daughter's name on your checking account. Again, that's the wrong way to do it. You've just given away half your checking account, and theoretically, the daughter could take it, or maybe her husband could file for divorce and end up being able to take half your checking account. So use a durable financial power of attorney. Do it right. We call it, don't do lazy man or lazy estate planning. Okay, do real estate planning. Get help. Use somebody that can, first of all, give you guidance. One of the issues I've seen with estate planning attorneys is they don't do a lot of planning around what's going on. They don't look at what their beneficiaries say. They don't look at how things are titled typically. The good ones will. Ours do. We do it with them, and we do the planning with them. But you can't, just going to LegalZoom or going and saying, I want a will. Maybe it's not a will you need. Maybe it's a trust you need. Mm-hmm. And a lot of attorneys, especially in Georgia, I've heard them say you really don't need a trust in Georgia. Georgia probate's pretty simple. Well, it may be simple, but it can be costly. And again, it's not
up to you at that point.
And it's not a private affair as well. So just be careful. Make sure you do it the right way. Don't take shortcuts. If a trust is good for you, but it costs twice as much, in the long run, it's going to cost a whole lot less, not only in money, but in grief and things that could go wrong. So don't concentrate on, hey, that trust is going to cost this much. I can get a will for this. In fact, I can go online and get a will for this. Yeah, well, you get what you pay for.
Well, and this is going to sound simple. Of course, make sure you audit your attorney and use someone that that comes highly recommended, but also make sure they're an estate planning attorney. A lot of attorneys who are not specifically estate planning will still offer estate planning services, and
It's basically a template.
it's basically a template, and we've seen that be inadequate in the past. So make sure that that is their specific focus, that they are estate planning attorneys, and find some references, some resources as well.
Yeah, well, it's no different than saying, going to my regular doctor and he says, well, you really have this problem with, your lungs or whatever. And so instead of going to a lung specialist, I just say, well, can you help me with it? You're a doctor. Can you just help me with it? Yeah, I'll read up on it a little bit and see what I can do for it. I would never do that. I don't think anybody listening would ever do that. You want the best care, and I know health care is very important, but so is your financial care as well. And you don't want to, again, cause issues for your family at one of the worst times.
Yeah, and everyone's situation is different. Everyone has different relationships with their children. Every family is different. But as much as you can share comfortably what you are comfortable sharing with your loved ones who will be handling a lot of this stuff, needs to be shared. Make sure that they're on the same page. One thing that we do with our clients is we offer a PRO, which stands for Professional Record Organizer, and basically that's everything they brought to us when we first met them to present day, all their documents, how our plan was enacted, where they are today, how they can access everything. It's all in one place, and that doesn't mean you necessarily have to tell your children about that, but if they're your power of attorney and healthcare, they're in the healthcare directive, everything else like that, whoever needs to know, make sure they know, and make sure it's clear and easy to get to, because again, just like other aspects of retirement planning, the whole purpose in the end is peace of mind and make sure that everything goes successfully.
Well, and the other thing we do, Evan, as you know, is we will offer a family meeting.
Sure.
After we've done all the planning, including estate planning, investment planning, Social Security planning, all the holistic areas we deal with. Once we finish that legacy planning, that's kind of the final step in what we do. We offer a meeting so that the kids can come in and meet with the family and whoever else they think is important to be there. But typically it's the children, the adult children. And so we come in and we share whatever the client asks us to share. Maybe it's no numbers. Maybe it's strictly, hey, this is Mark and Evan, this is MasterPlan, these are the people that work here, this is how we do stuff, call them if something happens to us, all the way down to where show them every penny, where it's at, who's getting it. We want them to know. We don't want there to be any disagreements if something happens to us. And so I think that's a critical part, is having that family meeting to be able to establish a little bit of a rapport with the children. They know who to call. I've gotten calls in the past from somebody I had no idea who they were. My mom passed away. She was a client of yours. Her name is so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, nice to meet you. And we're trying to deal with all this money and things going on. And she's got a brother in Tennessee. And it's just, we make it work. But it would have been so much nicer to have had a family meeting to discuss whatever the client wanted us to discuss.
Yeah. That's a good illustration, too, of exactly what we mean when we refer to ourselves as holistic retirement planners. A lot of times you say financial advisor or investment advisor or something like that. People just think immediately investments, and rightly so. A lot of financial advisors, investment advisors, that's what their focus is. And of course we do that, and that's an important side of what we do to provide for the whole plan. But as holistic retirement planners, we have to think of the entire picture and how they all work together. I think it's a great example.
And if that's all they're doing, you're gonna really have some missing pieces. So be very careful. Make sure a fiduciary and holistic, and make sure they concentrate on the retirement years.
Yeah.
That's the three most important things.
Yeah, and come see us for your own retirement. Remember, MasterPlanRetire.com is our website. You can schedule your complimentary consultation with us. Come and see us in the office. We'll buy you a cup of coffee, or we also got really good at Zoom a couple years ago, as you probably did as well. So we're happy to do that as well. Mark, any closing words for us?
Visit the website, MasterPlanRetire.com, a great place to schedule, also a great place to bookmark. But until we see each other again, remember, plan well and prosper. Take care, everybody.